Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think as I've sat here and listened to the debate today, it struck me that I think the chamber has been the quietest it's been for any debate that I've been here for over the last 16 and a half years. I don't understand the new dynamic with the docile nature of the chamber other than those that are at the mic, but you're actually able to hear everything that's going on now with the noise in the chamber, so that's been a benefit as I've been following the arguments today. I think there's been a lot of confusing information that's been put out. I mean, over the last 3 sessions, this is the 3rd session now that I'm the chairman of the State Government Committee, we've held hearing after hearing after hearing over the last 3 sessions now, including this session, on pension reform. Most recently with a couple of hearings on Senate Bill 1 specifically. And over that time frame, there's been a few things that have struck me that I'd like to kind of summarize the positives in Senate Bill 1 today. And you've heard from members on both sides. You've heard some from members that don't appreciate the legislation and will be voting against it. You've heard from members that would appreciate a good bit more being done in the legislation, but they're still going to support it and vote for it, because this is a good piece of legislation. We've moved on legislation out of the State Government Committee last session related to pension reform. We were not able to find consensus between the House and the Senate. This is historic today that we've found consensus between the House and Senate majorities, and that we're going to take a major piece of pension reform legislation and place it on the governor's desk. Historic. I mean, it's not perfect. It's a good piece of legislation. It's a piece of legislation that moves us in the direction of protecting taxpayers and protecting individuals who are going to be depending on this retirement and having a retirement in the future, and protecting individuals that are already retired. Whereas this legislation does not take anything away from anybody already retired, it protects the systems that they're depending on for the rest of their retirement. The systems as currently operating are not sustainable. We've heard a lot of testimony over the last several sessions at the hearings related to pension reform and a lot of different perspectives. But the one point that struck me the most has been mentioned by a couple of members throughout the process, is that in order to fix the unfunded liability, we have to fix the structural problem that we have with the system. A defined benefit system operated by the government will never be truly sustainable, because those who are making the decisions, those people in office, are always going to try and appease the members of the system in enhancing their benefits, giving them extra benefits that people in the private sector aren't able to afford. So when we've seen some of the system problems that we've seen over the last couple of decades, with 2001 being mentioned, with the pension enhancements that we saw put forward and passed in the law at the time, that was certainly part of the problem. If we don't fix the structural problem with the pension systems, if we don't try and remove the politicians from making decisions that should be made by financial experts regarding investments and retirement, if we don't remove the political forces from the system, we will never correct the deficiencies that have created the unfunded liabilities. The two major components to our problem is an unfunded liability and is the structure of the current defined benefit pension systems. The private sector has left us in the dust. Years ago, they've moved in the direction of eliminating defined benefit plans and moving toward defined contribution plans. This legislation moves us in that direction. The majority of what a new hire will have accessible to them will be a defined contribution plan with a supplemental cash balance plan running alongside of it. A cash balance plan that's being set up in a way that I believe we're going to protect taxpayers from the unfunded liabilities that have been created within this current defined benefit structure. So in order to protect the taxpayers of Pennsylvania, and in order to protect those who are we the people, that are the government, that we should be representing here today, it's important that we pass Senate Bill 1 and take that positive step forward to ensure that we protect taxpayers and protect the investments that people have already made into the systems so that they're able to be paid out in the future. When you see what's happening on the front page with Greece, you see problems with Puerto Rico now, This problem is not beyond reaching the United States of America. Many have experienced losses just in the wake of what's happened with Greece, with the market reactions. We have to ensure that we protect the investments of those who are investing for their retirement, and the best way to do that is to give them access to defined contribution plans as we see outlined in this legislation, Mr. Speaker. So the two main points that I would like to leave everyone with is that this historic piece of legislation moves us in the direction of creating a new plan for new hires, which enables us to stop the structural problems that have created the unfunded liability. And I think most importantly, Mr. Speaker, because after this is complete, there is still more work to be done related to the unfunded liability. I think what's most important is that we will be leading by example as legislators in this legislation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every legislator in this body and every legislator that will be elected to this body, along with the Senate across the Capitol, when you're reelected, when somebody's elected, that new legislator will be treated as a new hire. That incumbent legislator will be treated as a new hire. Every legislator will be treated as a new hire, and we will be leading by example toward the ultimate fix for protecting the taxpayers and ensuring that we protect the retirement investments of current employees and future employees, Mr. Speaker.